help, our documentation is out of date. Have you ever thought that? Have you ever read documentation and it's just wrong? Have you ever read documentation and it's waffly or like verbose? You can't figure out what the author was even trying to teach or say, let alone actually how to use it or how to use the software. Like modern documentation is a mess. But here's the thing, observability is documentation on steroids. Why? Because documentation allows you to answer preset questions about how your system works, right? And then you write it all down like a good little developer and you put it into Notion or you put it into Google Sheets or Google Docs or whatever it is, or maybe Confluence. The point is you're writing down that knowledge on an artifact, in a digital artifact. But what happens when the system changes? All of that knowledge is out of date. What happens if you can't correctly express that in the document? People get confused. So you're filtering data about how the system works through the filter of language, first of all, through your own communication skills. And then how do you structure this documentation exactly? And what kind of questions do you answer in the documentation exactly? And how much of it should there be or how little of it should be? There's a million things that can go wrong. With observability, however, you have the luxury, the privilege of having an ability where you can ask it questions. You can just ask the tool questions and you can ask the instrumentation questions about how our app works today, right now, with real customers in production. And that is way more valuable than any amount of documentation. So yes, there are times when you've got to have documentation, but there are a lot of times when you're actually trying to implement what observability gives you in a really, really poor man's version in a written document that's an artifact that ages, that gets out of date. So the next time you write some documentation, have a think to yourself, is there any way we could build runnable data, queryable data based on this into observability so the documentation wouldn't even need to exist? Or rather, maybe the documentation is, hey, go to this query, this SQL query or this query of our events in the observability tool, and this will answer your question. Anyway, a little bit of food for thought. I'm going now. Bye.